ships sailing our oceans. She's as tall as a 10-story building. And in a year, she travels 2/3 the distance to the moon.
Well, it's his job to keep out of my way, but he's not moving.
In 12 months, she carries nearly 200,000 containers, a cargo worth $4.5 billion. Cargo that must be delivered intact and on time. Yet this huge ship has a crew of only 22, who have to be ready for any conditions, any emergency.
All ship personnel to your home station. See any lights?
And must be ready to defend their ship against desperate marauders, modern-day pirates. The Atlanta's mission? Transporting and protecting a mountain of very valuable cargo. Come, experience life aboard a maritime megastructure. Witness the mechanics and machinations of life at sea.
Okay, I'll go ahead, thank you. Starboard 10.
And visit the bustling ports that feed the ever-growing world of trade. Welcome aboard the OOCL Atlanta, a mega ship, a true giant of the ocean. The Atlanta is one of the latest and largest class of container ships. Known as Post-Panamax, she and her kind are too wide to sail through the Panama Canal. If she were a naval vessel, she'd be the equivalent of an aircraft carrier with a crew of several thousand men. The Atlanta has a crew of just 22, ranging from a handful of ordinary seamen who work to keep the Atlanta shipshape at all times. 5 engineers keep the ship's engines, power plants, and operating systems up and running. And a team of 4 officers work in shifts around the clock. Junior officers stand watch and keep a close eye on the weather. Second Officer Law is responsible for navigation and communications. First Officer Jonathan oversees all the crew, the safety, and daily running of the ship and all cargo load. At the team's head is a captain who's spent all his working life at sea.
Starboard 10. Starboard 10.
Captain Roger Llewellyn is a man with salt water coursing through his veins. And over the years, he's developed some interesting sleeping habits.
One eye open, always. We sleep with one eye open because at 25, 26 knots, you've got to jump out and up there.
Up there is the bridge, and that's where the sailor who never sleeps has spent most of his last 30 years. He's sailed every ocean on the planet and visited every nation that borders the sea. Right now, the Atlanta is in the Malacca Straits, heading from Port Kelang, Malaysia to Singapore, then north to Hong Kong. It's a hectic schedule on a crowded route.
050.
A lot of traffic not doing what they're supposed to do, a lot of traffic not reporting. So you've got to have eyes at the back of your head. You've got to keep an eye out for everything moving, especially small coastal traffic. We've got one here, not reported, you see. He's trying to get across the bow.
When the Atlanta blows her horn, you'd be well advised to move out of her way. Her vital statistics are staggering. From bow to stern, the Atlanta is 323 meters long. That's over 1,000 feet. In fact, if you could tip the Atlanta up on her bow, she'd edge out the Eiffel Tower. The area of her top deck is greater than 2 football fields. Fully laden, the Atlanta weighs more than 300 jumbo jets. On her normal route, she carries cargo from Southeast Asia to the west coast of America and back again every 42 days.
These ocean giants make the earth very small. It is a village, because one minute we're in the east, next minute we're in the west. Very little time between the two. So we're constantly plying the world with manufactured goods.
Mega ships like the Atlanta help keep the wheels of global commerce turning. Over half the world's cargo is carried in containers. In 1 year, nearly 20 million containers are moved a total of 300 million times. It's a payload worth almost $5 trillion. The Atlanta may be loaded down, but she still has to be on time.
She runs to schedule for thousands and thousands of miles. She'll arrive on time.
In Singapore, containers are arriving from all around the region. Some have a date with the Atlanta. These transfers must be planned with military precision. It's a chain where a weak link means a cargo gets delayed, or even worse, lost. The bottom line, the cargo must be at port waiting when the Atlanta docks. Two particular pieces of cargo due for the Atlanta started their journey several thousand kilometers away in Australia. One is precious and fragile, a shipment of 999 cartons of wine from the lush vineyards of South Australia. The other is also a gourmet delight, but this time highly perishable, a container load of sweet, succulent prawns. Both the wine and seafood are bound for shops and restaurants in Hong Kong, and both will require extreme care and constant supervision.
OOCL 9koj7, good morning. Can I have your last port of call?
The Atlanta's due in Singapore in less than 24 hours, but there's a problem.
Third mate.
Yes, that's correct, over.
Third mate. Yeah, OOCL Atlanta, the master here. I sent it yesterday and I sent it again this morning when I left Port Callaghan.
Roger, but so far we're not receiving.
Port procedures are very strict.
I give up.
Without the right paperwork, ships can't enter a country's waters.
Third mate, keep him there, tell him. Instead of the last 10 ports which you've already got, I'll just send you Port Callaghan.
Okay, no problem, no problem.
Aye, aye.
The captain must keep to schedule. He has 2,200 containers to move in Singapore. And he must get there on time. The Atlanta is steaming towards Singapore Harbor and the planned 2,200 container moves. This megaship is purpose-built for one thing only: to carry cargo. A mountain of cargo. All up, she can carry 8,063 20-foot containers.
These are the lashing bars and the turnbuckles up. These are 20 foot. You can load 20s and you can load 40s, either or. But we still need lashing forward and aft to keep them fixed in position.
Even though she hasn't yet reached her full load capacity, the captain still likes to check on the containers from the top to the very bottom.
Where we are now, we're 13.6 metres underwater now. Down here, the containers are stacked 9 high. So they go 9 high and then on deck another 6 to 8 high. So roughly we're stacking 17 high. From the very bottom of the stack, over 13 meters below the water, the containers rise over 44 meters. On land, it would look like a city block rising 10 stories. If laid end to end, those containers would stretch further than an Olympic marathon, nearly 50 kilometers. A little over 40 years ago, it was a different story. Products like wine would have been transported in a variety of simple boxes, and moving frozen foods over long distances was simply out of the question. Then, in the late 50s, an American, Malcolm McLean, came up with an idea that would revolutionize world trade. By packing all goods into modular containers similar in design and dimension, they could be easily transported anywhere in the world by road, rail, or sea.
As the use of these containers has grown, so has the size of the ships that carry them. The Atlanta is one of 12 SX-class ships built for OOCL by the Samsung shipyard in Korea. It took over 8,000 workers nearly 9 months to build her, at a cost of over $150 million.
She is the largest ship ever built when she was contract. And she had been installed the largest main engine when available in that time.
For the engine power that he was given, for the speed he wants, he's done, for me, a great job.
When first launched, the SX class held the world record as the largest container ship ever built.
We use the high tensile steel to get the minimum light ship weight so that we can maximize the cargo loading capability.
It's that combination of high tensile steel and the design of the hull that gives the Atlanta her enormous load-carrying ability.
This that runs the full length of the ship, it's a very important structural member for stresses, because you must remember there's so many big openings that the ship is bending all the time. In this area, when you've got 95,000 horsepower pushing this ship, the pressure is enormous. You can see that the frame structure is very heavy. So this is a high stress area, especially in heavy weather.
The real pride of the Atlanta is the power plant. This is one of the world's biggest diesel engines. A 12-cylinder turbocharged monster. Its sheer size is breathtaking. The engine fills a room 6 stories high, 6 stories of incredible power. The engine peaks at 104 revolutions per minute, but generates a mind-blowing 93,120 brake horsepower. That's over 700 times more power than an average family car. And all that power adds up to one thing: speed through the water. She can average nearly 25 nautical miles an hour. That's fast enough to water ski behind, as long as you can handle that huge stern wash. While at sea, the Atlanta can notch up over 570 nautical miles a day. But a speed like that comes at a price.
This ship, she burns a lot of fuel. Full speed, she'll burn 230, 240 tons a day.
That's a staggering 10 tons of diesel every hour the ship is underway. She may be thirsty, but she's also a clean engine. And that starts with clean fuel. A series of filters remove impurities before the diesel is pumped into a holding tank and heated to 129 degrees. Hot fuel and gas is an explosive mix.
Number 7 cargo hold, the fire alarm's gone off.
No other sound strikes fear into the heart of the mariner like the fire alarm.
Starboard side, bay 1, starboard side. Let me know.
A fire at sea can spell disaster. A small spark can soon become a fireball. The crew have to be ready to act in an instant.
In the ocean, you're on your own, you've got nobody. We've got no shore facilities, no emergency services. We just rely on our own training and our own emergency services. But a fire is the worst.
In an emergency like this, First Mate Jonathan rallies the crew. The captain calls the shots.
We are now proceeding forward for investigation.
Aye, aye. On deck, please.
Getting it right can mean the difference between survival and disaster.
Both those are ready. Okay, I'm going to start the emergency fire pump.
I got me that.
The crew have to work together closely. When the emergency pumps come on, they come on strong. Seawater is pumped onto a fire at a rate of over 4,000 liters per minute through high-pressure hoses.
Training every Saturday afternoon, 2 hours of training every Saturday. We have fire drills, forward, galley, accommodation, all over the ship. Within a space of 3 months, we'll have covered every part of the ship and a fire drill. And 95% of all fires at sea are in the engine room.
Maybe down at the CO2 room. The CO2 room. You read over? No copy.
Each week, the Atlanta's crew carry out an intensive fire drill. A fire in the engine room is the most dangerous of all and cannot be fought with water. Fighting an engine room fire requires a different strategy. This room is filled with hundreds of bottles of carbon dioxide, which can be directed automatically to the engine room via a network of sprinkler systems, starving the fire of oxygen. The Atlanta has been powering her way towards Singapore, with Captain Llewellyn determined to keep her on schedule. The Atlanta's ability to maintain her top speed is thanks to her revolutionary propeller. This 85-ton, 6-bladed piece of molded alloy spinning at just 104 revolutions per minute provides enough thrust to drive her forward at 25 knots. Sitting behind that propeller is a huge rudder that plunges nearly 12 meters below the surface of the waves. It's roughly the same size as a double-decker bus. And with a surface area like that, the captain doesn't want it angled for too long. A rudder at an angle causes drag, which slows the ship down.
You need to keep the rudder movements to a minimum. So I like just to keep her within 1 degree on either side, but that depends on the sea conditions. Big swells, big following sea, you can't do that.
At the moment, the sea conditions are perfect for steering a straight line to Singapore. ETA, 0700 hours. The first sign that the Atlanta's getting closer to port is the sudden increase in sea traffic.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
One of the problems with being a giant is avoiding the dwarves of the ocean. For the captain, arrival at port is one of the most stressful parts of the journey. He has to be ready to react in an instant.
Well, it's his job to keep out of my way, but he's not moving, you see. He's still coming across. Now he's going round. Now he's going to come across my stern.
It's going to be a long day for the captain and his crew. Getting into port is just the first hurdle.
It's the end of, not the end of the working day, but it's because we got cargo work straight away after. But it's the end of the problems in the Singapore Straits. So we can relax a little. Engine tested head and stern.
While the captain maneuvers the Atlanta carefully closer to port, 2,500 kilometers away, another key individual is frantically working behind the scenes. Eric Lee is the ship planner. At the head office in Hong Kong, he's using the latest in sophisticated cargo planning software. He calls all the shots when it comes to loading the Atlanta's 8,000 containers, and must make sure that every piece of cargo is ready and waiting. A miscalculation could prove costly.
The worst thing is the ship is sitting at the terminal, berthing at the terminal without any work. We lost a lot.
Eric isn't the only one who has to get his planning right. Captain Llewellyn must get to the port on time. But before he gets there, the busy waterways are going to get even busier. It's time to call in the assistance of a local expert, the pilot. Every harbor has its own secrets. Fast currents, changing tides, shallow waters. In a tricky maneuver, the Atlanta is about to pick up the man who knows these waters like the back of his hand. Zamil Nair has been a pilot in Singapore port for over 20 years.
Well, we trust him, but you got to watch what he's doing. So it's until you're actually tied up, because you can't relax.
Bringing this megaship into dock is the most dangerous maneuver of any trip.
Dead slow at the moment.
The chain of command is strict and involves as many as 12 key individuals.
Thank you, brother. Basically, I'm working closely with the captain, ship's captain, and he's using my expertise in ship handling and local knowledge to get the ship alongside. 314, steady, sir. Thank you. Dead slow ahead.
Dead slow ahead.
Sea Labrador, Pilot Labrador. We've got a tug coming out there. It's going to be made fast at the stern on the port quarter. This tug is about 4,000 horsepower and it's a fairly big, powerful tug. So basically I'm going to swing the ship around to starboard and then backing down into the berth. Stop engines.
Stop. Engine.
With main engines stopped, the tugboat Labrador is tied to the stern of the Atlanta on the port side. Then it's dead slow ahead.
Atlanta bridge, gangway ready.
Okay, Tango 1, OOCL.
Tango 1.
Will be starboard side, long side, bridge to bow, 249 meters.
249.
Okay, I see one of your crane is down. Can you check on the crane, please?
Okay. Tango 3.
Bigger the ship, the smaller the space, pilot.
Yep.
The bigger the ship, the smaller the space.
Port. A handful. Water court.
$26.
There is an is all. Out the right. Move in Singapore. As the youth.
structural. On deck.
Crew have to
The space is 90.
1,600. Hours.
Now he's... Go planning software. In it.
the captain, ship's captain. We've got it. Long side, 2 font.